Hello there. Today I'm continuing my look at Penfold's bin range of wines from South Australia. So today I'm looking at Penfold's bin 389, which is a Cabernet Shiraz, or Cabernet Sauvignon I should probably say, and Shiraz from the 2022 vintage. Now I think it's easy to forget quite how revolutionary and quite how important Penfold's bin range of wines has been in the development of the production of table wines in South Australia. Bin 28 and one or two of the other bin wines had been introduced in 1959. Bin 389 followed in 1960. These were high quality branded table wines at a time when the majority of the industry was probably still making fortified wines. And so these were quite groundbreaking wines that Max Schubert was making. And I think the idea of blending Cabernet Sauvignon and Shiraz very much stems from the fact that Max had spent some time in Bordeaux, and there the blending of Merlot to soften Cabernet Sauvignon was commonplace. Max didn't have Merlot, so to smooth out and to round out his Cabernet Sauvignon, he chose to use some rich, ripe, old vine Barossa Shiraz. And this became very commonplace in Australia. And it works very well because Cabernet Sauvignon tends to have high tannins, good acidity, but is actually quite lean and linear in its style. Whereas, particularly if it comes from warm climates in areas such as the Barossa Valley or the McLaren Vale, there's a real generosity to rich, ripe, particularly if it's come from old vines, Shiraz. So this contrast between the two varieties is accentuated by the fact that you're using Cabernet Sauvignon predominantly from cooler southern areas, Coonawarra, and in this case also Wrattonbully on the limestone coast, with fruit from these warmer regions such as the Barossa Valley and the McLaren Vale. And again, this is a demonstration how during the development of Australia's winemaking, it was often the case that the winemaker creating a wine became more important to the wine style than the individual terroir of a single vineyard. And certainly the influence of Max Schubert shouldn't be underestimated. I mean, this was a man who started with Penfolds in 1931 as an office messenger and eventually left the company in 1975, having created such brands as Grange, Bin 707, Bin 28 and Bin 389. So while I've talked about the idea that we're blending fruit from warm regions with fruit from cooler regions, actually the 2022 vintage somewhat mitigated this effect because overall it was quite cool. Those regions to the north, the Barossa Valley and the McLaren Vale, were generally cool and had long growing seasons with slow ripening fruit. Those regions further south, such as Padthaway, Wrattonbully and Coonawarra, actually had issues in the case of Padthaway with frosts. I think Coonawarra might have experienced some isolated hail. Wrattonbully experienced excessive rainfall between April and October that was almost 50% more than was normal. And there it was very important just to select the fruit from the best plots of the vineyards. I presume the fruit was predominantly hand-picked, although I don't have any details of that. And actually this is a large brand, so I'm sure that different parcels will have been treated in slightly differing ways. Without having any details, I believe it's probable that all the fruit was being trucked to wineries in the Barossa Valley to be processed, and places such as Coonawarra, Wrattonbully and Padthaway are 5 or 6 hours drive at least away from there. Winemaking will almost certainly have been predominantly in temperature controlled stainless steel tanks, but given the way that Penfolds work with their range, in which they have a sort of a cascade of quality where fruit is selected for the top wines first and then those wines that aren't selected for that move down to the next tier. Some of the components for this wine may have been made as small batches, whereas others may have been made in larger volumes. What we do know though is that the wine aged in oak. This was American oak hogsheads, a hogshead a 250 litre barrel, so slightly larger than a barrique, but not a lot bigger, and just over a third, 36% of these barrels were new. So I'm expecting certainly American oak to give some quite powerful notes of vanilla to the wine and to add some tannin to the structure as well. So let's see what we make of the wine. Looking at it, it's a deep, dark, inky, black purple. The Cabernet Shiraz blend, and I believe this is a blend of 51% Cabernet and 49% Shiraz. Has a deeper, darker, more sort of blue-purple colour than the unblended Shiraz of the bin 28 had, that was more reddish. Certainly the wine is eager to stain the glass and is creating very obvious tears running down there. Again, this is 14.5% alcohol, so I'm expecting this to be quite a concentrated wine. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? Yes, the aromas are showing some quite obvious vanilla, but that combines with minty hints, slight touches of eucalyptus. There are some cedar notes, and then there's a juicy black currant through to black cherry aroma, but you know, quite a vivid, sharp, almost slightly leafy cassis note there, but also quite a nice intensity. It has quite a nice richness. So that's for taste. Good acidity, gives a lovely liveliness, some quite crunchy black currant noted fruit initially on the attack. Also on the front of the tongue there is relatively firm but really quite fine tannin. It's coating my tongue, it's chocolatey, there's notes of cocoa powder there, there's notes of cocoa butter, vanilla. There's some high tone tea elements to the perfume that I'm seeing on the edges of my tongue, along with black fruit. There's a juicy black cherry note, juicy blackberry notes, and this chocolatey core of dark fruit is just slightly showing a little bit of cedar flavour and that sort of slightly drying texture. The alcohol is giving a little bit of warmth to the finish, and there you're seeing cinnamon notes, you're certainly seeing vanilla, and again cedary hints. I should perhaps say the cedar is actually relatively well integrated. I think with a little bit of time it will become more harmonious, but it doesn't particularly stand out. And again, the warmth of the alcohol is balanced by rich fruit, but it's giving us sort of a spicy, almost slightly peppery note on the finish. But there's enough fruit to ensure there is that sort of rich, actually blackberry note on the finish coming through there. And the wine has pretty fair length. I looked at the Wine Searcher aggregated critic score for this, and this gets a 94 out of 100. Given the wine's power and the fact that it has concentration and balance, I can see why that is. I do slightly wonder whether the wine's power has led to it getting perhaps a tiny touch higher mark than it deserves. But it certainly has intensity. I think it's drinkable now. I think it has a long future ahead of it. Penfolds in their literature suggest that this is a wine that would age up until 2050. Certainly its alcohol and its concentration would suggest that that's likely. I don't think it's a wine for the faint-hearted. It is big, rich and robust, but it does have an extra dimension. It does have a level of balance in which there's acidity to keep the fruit fresh to the finish, and where there's enough fruit to stop the high alcohol from standing out and giving a burn on the finish. I really quite enjoy its opulence and its fruit-forward nature. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed the tasting. If you have, do please press the like button. If you'd like to watch more of our tastings, it would be fantastic if you'd consider subscribing to our channel. We would very much appreciate your support there, and then also you can set yourself a notification so you can be alerted every time we publish a new video tasting. If you have any comments you'd like to leave, please pop those in the comments box below. If you have any friends you think might like to watch the tasting, it would be fantastic if you would think about forwarding the video to them. We'd really appreciate your endorsement there. I will leave a link to the Wine Searcher webpage for this wine in the notes below, and if you want to follow that you can find out what the wine's price is, where it's available near you, and then using the tabs on that page you can find out more about the winemaking, about the producer, the region, the grape varieties. We'll tell you what the critics have said about it, any awards it's won. We show its price history, you'll be able to compare it to other vintages, and you can see other users' reviews as well. So hopefully we've managed to assemble all the information you'd possibly want to be able to make an informed purchasing decision for this wine. So hopefully that's a help to you, and hopefully we'll see you again at another tasting in the very near future. Bye for now.